The 0-2 pitch, swing and a miss, struck him out. The Philadelphia Phillies are 2008 World Champions of Baseball.
Good evening, everybody. Welcome back to another episode of the Phixated podcast. I am your host, Bourbon Guy Azzy, joined by other Bourbon Guy Regz. Bud, we're here.
That's true. I'm not joining you tonight. I'm having a Diet Coke and water, which I kind of feel bad about. But again, you turning into a Bourbon Guy was not in my stack of cards here.
Wasn't on the bingo card this year?
That was not on the bingo card. I don't know if it would be on the bingo card any year.
But it's here.
It's here.
Bingo card.
It is here.
We are starting to stack the bar upstairs with just bourbons out the wazoo right now. Like they're just everywhere. And for my birthday, my brother-in-law and sister-in-law got me. Have you ever had Legion?
I have not.
Okay. So it's very good. I'm actually having a little bit this evening. However, it was also labeled Phillies fan pain reliever. So this will be my
You're just going to hold on to that. Yep.
This will only be Phillies bourbon for the rough games. If it's one of those nights where we're texting each other one of those nights.
Some random Wednesday in May.
Yeah. That's what we'll go with. I think, that'll I'm going
to do that. Maybe that's the hashtag, break out the pain reliever.
That's the one. Break out the pain reliever on those nights. That's the one. So, yeah, it's very good. I've had it before with him, actually. And, when I opened it, I was like, oh, that makes sense. And he spins the bottle on the dinner table. And there was the Phillies fan pain reliever. And I was like,
it's pretty good. It's pretty good.
Works for me. So, Legion, Kentucky bourbon. All excited about it. But I don't know that I'm as excited about this as I am about our show tonight, Regs. Because we've got quite a show. We are going to honor another Philly sports legend this evening. I'm going to get into the 5 things that if I were Howie Roseman, I would absolutely have done before the draft. 5 things I'd absolutely have done before the draft. And then you and I are going to get into our bold predictions for the Phillies season. And go from there and see where we're at and go off into the sunset from there. And, another show will be in the books before we can blink our eyes.
That's right. I believe this is 149 will be this one.
Well, 150 could be a special one. You never know.
That's right.
So let's start with this. We're not even 7 days removed from the heartbreak of Jason Kelce. We didn't even get a chance to finish the sadness that we were experiencing to complete our mourning phase. And Fletcher Cox just drops an Instagram post today announcing that he's retiring. Now, I think we kind of knew it was coming. I don't think we were, telling ourselves anything different. And with free agency starting tomorrow, I think it's fair that he did it when he did it. But we weren't ready, man. We weren't, I don't think we were prepared. I don't think we were prepared.
Again, it was great. It was well written. It was
so well written.
It was really good. I'm sure this was his choice. Again, if he wanted to hold a press conference, the Eagles would have gladly done so. But I'm sure this was just his preferred method. Yeah, it's going to be a weird season. It's going to be a weird season not seeing 91 and 62 walk out there for the captains, coin toss and all that kind of stuff. It's going to be weird not seeing those guys come in and line up. I think I'm going to forget. I'm going to be like, wait, is Fletcher not playing today? Or what happened? It's going to be one of those things where it's going to take a game or two to really have it sink in that those guys are just kind of done. He will be, I think, he'll go into the Eagles, whatever, Hall of Fame or all those things. He was a phenomenal player. Possibly our best defensive player, on a Super Bowl winning team. So that has to account for something.
Oh yeah, 100% was. Yeah.
But probably just going to be a criminally underrated from a national standpoint. But this guy was one of the best at his position for a long time and might have been their best defensive lineman this year, like the year before he retired. So it's a big loss because him being around, and hopefully maybe he can still stick around to help a Jordan Davis and a Jalen Carter and guys like that. Like somebody like Fletch is the guy you want to be like the little angel on their shoulder, telling them the right things to do, how to be a professional, how to go about your business the right way, how to, represent Philadelphia and all those things. It's just, that's the guy you want in those kids' ears all the time because he just did it so well and was such a professional and was really, really good at it.
Yeah. Well, I think, like you said, first and foremost, it's going to be very odd when 62 and 91 are not walking toward the middle of the field. It's also one of these things where it's like, man, they have taken a hit in the leadership department.
Yeah.
In a way that I don't know. I think we expected, but I don't know that we can really understand. With all this, Brandon Graham signed a 1-year deal yesterday and is coming back. So that's a help, right? Like that's a huge help. It's tough, right? Because those two as captains could hold the fort down, and now you've got to look around that locker room and be like, well, who's it going to be? Fletch, like you said, was I mean, look, someone tweeted today, greatest Eagle defensive lineman of all time, and that's just not true.
Well, yeah.
I think he's the greatest Eagle defensive lineman who played his whole career with the Eagles. You can't put him ahead of Reggie.
Yeah,
Like,
right.
you know what I mean? Like that, there are a couple of others that played with Reggie that, could go in that conversation as well, like Jerome Brown. But like, in terms of how long he played here, it is so unheard. When all is said and done, after probably after 2026, the Eagles will have had 4 dudes playing on their team in the trenches, full careers that will span over decades, like Jason Kelce, Fletcher Cox, Brandon Graham's about to play his 15th year as a Philadelphia Eagle, and Lane Johnson. 4 guys, right? 4 guys. That's unheard of in the NFL. That's unheard of in sports anymore. And these dudes playing some of the toughest positions on the planet did it. And did it at a high level. Like 2 of them, probably 3 are going to be Hall of Famers. Fletcher Cox was arguably the most dominant defensive player for like a 3 or 4 year span. He didn't rack up sacks. He didn't, but he ate up 2 or 3 dudes on the line. It's what they're hoping Jalen Carter becomes.
Right.
And what I do believe Jalen Carter can become. But we saw flashes of it as a rookie, but Fletcher just did it for so long at such a high level. And like you said, was arguably their best player last year down the stretch. I think, for as much as we appreciated and really leaned into the Jason Kelce stuff, I don't know that the city necessarily appreciated Fletcher Cox enough.
Yeah.
And that includes me. I think we just took for granted what he brought because there wasn't a lot of flash, right? Like there wasn't a lot of beauty to the game. I think, Jason Kelce brought beauty to the center position because he played it so differently. Lane Johnson, we recognize because when he's not playing, we see that.
Well, yeah.
You can feel that.
Yeah.
I read something today in his decade plus of football with the Eagles, Fletcher Cox only missed 6 games, Regz. That's absurd.
Crazy. Yeah.
That's absurd. Like, we just kind of took for granted the fact that he was there. Like
All
the
the
fact that he
time.
the fact that he lined up every week. And now, I mean, he's not gonna be there. And we're gonna miss the army crawl
Yeah.
celebration, and we're gonna miss the big smile. I mean, Fletch wasn't your typical like leader or media guy. Like you heard from him, but he wasn't like the guy there. Everybody goes to BG, you know. He's the guy that the media really leans into. Fletch had moments with the media, and I mean, he said it like it was a lot. I'm curious to see how this team adjusts without those two guys leading in the trenches, but leading in the locker room.
Yeah.
Because right now, your captains that you're left with are Jalen Hurts. It is fully your team now. Like, it is fully your team.
Yeah.
If it was not before, it is now. AJ Brown, who I thought did a really nice job with the media last year, despite what, idiots on Philadelphia media and airwaves will say. I thought he was tremendous. Darius Slay
Yeah.
was a captain last year. And we know how that kind of went down. And I know I'm missing, I think Lane was one, I believe. I don't know if BG was one, but it would make sense if he was, and it would make sense if he goes into next year one too.
Yeah.
But they're going to need to find some other captains along the way. They've got some young blood on this team, and they've got to replace not just two captains, but two all-time greats
Yeah.
in the organization to be the presence in the locker room. And the other crazy thing about this, Regs, is the idea that these were the two probably loudest in the locker room in defense of Nick Sirianni.
Yeah, it's a really good point, because we ended the year with so much like the locker room is in shambles and all this kind of stuff, and that was with these two guys still there and doing what they're doing, and I'm sure pulling guys together to like focus on the right things.
Yeah.
Like from an offensive side, like look, you still have Lane, like you still have Stout as a coach, all those things. It doesn't seem like there's a lot of like, look, say what you will about AJ Brown and stuff like that, but nothing really ever came of like that he's this kind of menace or this like toxic person in the locker room. Like none of that turned out to really be true whenever it got brought up. I do think Jalen has to step up like big time. Like I get it. You got this money. You were, turned into a Jordan guy, getting endorsements from other places, and deservedly so. But I do think it was a shock to him, and it was like it didn't go great. Like it didn't go. It didn't. He either didn't handle it well, wasn't prepared to handle it the right way, whatever it might be. It didn't go great, and he's got to understand that part of leadership is adaptation. Like I get it. No one is asking you to change the person you are.
Right.
But you have to adapt to the situation. Like losing guys like Kelsey and Fletch, like you said, who are guys who weren't afraid to step up in the locker room or in a meeting or things like that and talk to people and then face a microphone and say the same thing.
Yeah.
And not be just full of these like isms and things like that. Like they just, like you said, they told it how it was. He's got some steps to take to step into that. And look, he's still a young guy who is getting paid a lot of money, and underperformed last year. So there's a lot still on Jalen's plate. I think from the offensive side, like when you still have a guy like Lane Johnson or Mailata around, I'm not too concerned about that side of the ball, just because it's still like they still have stabilizers there. There's still guys there that have been around for a while. The defense does worry me a little bit because, like, by all accounts, you're overhauling a very large portion of this defense. So it's going to be a lot of very new guys. And outside of Brandon Graham, I'm not sure who you look to as like the staple piece of that defense. Um,
I've got a couple coming your way, bud.
Listen, they very well could bring in guys who are just true leaders and can just step up and step right into that role, and hopefully that's something that they're looking at. But from a defensive standpoint, it's like you have a lot of young guys who have their own little group, like being either from Georgia or things like that. Like you have to have guys that keep that group together.
Yeah.
And especially with a coach like Fangio, who's not like look, he's not probably going to be the easiest coach to play for at the beginning. He's going to expect a lot, and he's going to expect you to know what you're doing. And I have a little bit more concern for that side of the ball in terms of just like the loss of leadership.
Yeah, I think, overall what it comes down to is what is it just going to feel like in the locker room? Yeah, you want to have some of that on both sides of the ball. I'll talk about that in a little bit. But yeah, there's going to be a huge overhaul there. I think we've kind of leaned into that a little bit. I think starting tomorrow, we're going to find out just how big of an overhaul there is. But at the end of the day, I think, this comes back to they lost such an important piece on the offensive side, and they lost just as an important piece on the defensive side. And I think that your point about, they've got pieces to pick that up on one side. On the other side, we're about to find out. Because what Fletch meant to this group, you've heard it from guys, I'm going to miss seeing him. I'm going to miss, talking to him. I'm going to miss learning from him. He was a big part of that defense, and a big part of this organization. And from a fan perspective, he's another one that when we talk about greatest of our generation, greatest of our fandom, he fits right into that conversation with the Dawkinses, with the Kelseys, with the Jenkins. He brought home that Super Bowl and was this close to another. I think he retires last year if they win.
Yeah.
But unfortunately, he didn't get that second one. And Fletcher, I think, just like we said about Kels, we appreciate you, and damn sure no one gonna be wearing 91.
Yeah.
Ever again. It'd be really cool if the two of them went in together in a couple years there in 2029. Though it'd be something else.
Yeah.
If they both fell into Canton at the same time, that would be pretty darn special, right?
Yeah.
But it wouldn't shock me if they were walking to the 50-yard line on their first home game in Philly. That just wouldn't shock me. It's funny because I wonder how much of this, like Jason talked about it on New Heights, about like I knew it. My body's just I can't anymore.
Yeah.
And both of these guys watched Jason Peters try and play just too long.
Mm-hmm.
They were still playing at a high level. Good way for both of them to go out. But like just that idea of, oh my gosh, we got to go to Brazil.
Yeah, right. Yeah.
To start the year, like I can't see, Jason Kelce being super pumped about going to Brazil.
Right. No matter what the planes look like, I'm not sure they were going to be super pumped about that. Yeah.
Yeah. So just something that I thought of. All right, let's again, Fletch, thank you.
Yeah,
I don't know that we can do enough credit or enough just due to what he was for this organization and what he was. I know that like I got teary-eyed and misty-eyed with Kelce. I don't know that I have any more left in me, but I do want to just let it be known that I feel very much the same way about him that I do about Kelce.
It's very different because there wasn't the press conference, I'm sure Fletch would have been emotional, like ending a career like his. So it's not the same sort of visceral reaction that you get from an Instagram post. But like you said, it should be taken the same exact way.
Yes. Yeah.
They were both
I sent you the same type of message, like I can't believe we're doing this again 6 days later.
Yeah.
Like, send it to Andrea with like the crying emojis. Like we didn't even get to stop crying about one, and here we are on another.
Yeah.
So again, Fletch, we love you, man, and thanks for the Super Bowl and for the years and years and years of just knowing that 9-1 was going to be out there and being dominant and effective all the way till his last snaps in Tampa this year.
Yep.
Was never a doubt. But we do have to move into a new season, Regs. And tomorrow that new year starts. Football does not spend a lot of time away.
Mm-mm.
And their off season does not waste time. There will be guys who will be out there for a few weeks and, teams will jump in and then guys will get cut after training camp and teams will jump in. But I fully expect the Eagles to be pretty much all in pretty much right away.
Yeah.
I don't know that all this is happening tomorrow. I think a few of these things are happening tomorrow. But I think some of them will wait. So I know that I talked about it as things I want Howie to do before the draft.
Mm-hmm.
Right? But some of them, one of them comes in tandem, and the first one is not one of those. And I'm just gonna say it straight up. There are positions they just haven't spent on. Linebacker, safety, right? Like they just don't spend money there. This safety class is really interesting to me because there are so many guys that they could live in the middle of the class and totally be fine because there's enough talent there.
Right.
That being said, I don't believe that's going to be the case this year. I do think they are gonna swim at the top a little bit and pay at the top. And I've talked about them a lot. And I'm not gonna get into money and stuff because I that takes a lot to explain the cap and how it impacts it. Just know that everything here they can do. Everything that I'm about to say they can do. They have the cash to do it. The cap's not gonna matter at the end of the day. Howie will find a way around the cap. Okay. They can do all of this. They have the room. I think it's time to get a safety in here that can make a difference, that can play at a high level, that can be a leader, and that is going to be here for 4 or 5 years and be that type of a player. So go bring me Xavier McKinney. This is a guy I have talked about on this show probably now since the end of the season. They need to make a game-changing move at that position. Reed is fine. When Brown is back, he is fine. But imagine having those two and letting those two float around in the box almost as pseudo linebackers.
Right.
The way they were starting to let Sidney Brown do when he got hurt.
Yeah.
And just having a true safety back there, like a star safety back there, roaming around. It's a big difference maker. That's the number one thing I want to see tomorrow. That's number one. Bring me Xavier McKinney. Please, good Lord, do not make me stress it. Do not make me think he's going somewhere else. Just bring me this guy. And again, he's the type of guy that you sign for 3-4 years. He's here. There's stability at the position. He's only 24, Regs.
Right. Yeah.
24. I mean, he's been hurt quite a bit. He had 78 solo tackles last year, number 1 rated safety in coverage last year. The only concern is missing games, but the Eagles training staff, for some reason, they don't have a ton of injuries every year. Like they're always talked about as a team who, with the training staff, guys feel good about. So I'm hoping they bring him in and he's a difference maker. So he's number 1 off of my list. Number 2 is a familiar name. I've seen a lot on social media about Saquon Barkley. With the moves that I had to make here, he's not on this list.
Yeah.
He was on, I told Regs I had 3. He was on 2 of the 3. He's just not on this one. Would it shock me? No. If they're going to make the moves that I want them to make, yes. I haven't bringing DeAndre Swift back. 1 year, $6 million. I think it's the perfect year for him to reset his market again because next year the running back market is barren.
Yeah.
So he could be the top guy on next year's market and just sign 1 year here and go off with Kellen Moore. But when there's smoke, there's fire. And it sounds, I heard Zach Berman say it's very real today that they're interested in Saquon Barkley. So could actually happen.
That would be something.
Maybe he's talking about McKinney. He was talking about one of the two. It was a giant for sure. But I could see them bringing either of those guys or both of those guys. So that's my number 2. Then I got him in the linebacker market. There are 2 guys that I think kind of fit the mold of what they look for. Going to be like a $6-7 million guy. I would like for one of these 2 to be here for 2 years, maybe 3. One was a Seahawk, so he's familiar with a couple of guys that have come over from that coaching staff, and one is a former Niner, but he played with the Titans this year, and the Eagles did bring over the Titans linebacker coach. So I couldn't decide on one of these 2. I'm good with either or. Jordan Brooks, linebacker from Seattle, or Azeez Al-Shaair from Tennessee. Both are still younger in this world, and that's sort of been my focus. They have to bring in guys who are going to make this defense younger and can be here for a few years and sort of help, hold steady. So Jordan Brooks is 26. He had 4.5 sacks this past year, 100+ solo tackles in 2 of the last 3 years, and an upside player. Azeez Al-Shaair, 26 years old, 73 games under his belt, 163 tackles last year. And like I said, he was in San Francisco before he was in Tennessee. So both 26-year-old linebackers, I think they fit the prototype of what the Eagles are looking for from a money perspective, from a year's perspective, and fill that need. And helps if Nakobe Dean does go down again.
Yeah.
You do have another guy who can play the position and be effective there. And they'll still get depth. But those are 2 names that I'd look for them to be hard after. Okay. That'll take us to a couple of moves that all kind of go in one.
Got it.
We've seen the conversations about Hassan Reddick. We've seen the conversations about Sweaty, about Josh Sweat. We've seen that they're not afraid to trade both. So in this scenario, I have both going because I couldn't decide on one or the other. And I think if they're just going to revamp the defense, let's just revamp the defense. Both of these guys struggled against the run last year. Both of these guys struggled being dropped into pass protect or into pass coverage, and that's going to be something that happens with Vic.
Yeah.
We know that he's going to protect you differently, but they both struggled there. Sweaty got better with run defense. I do want to say that he was better there, but they did bring Graham back. They have Nolan Smith back. That doesn't mean that they're not going to still add multiple. They value the line.
Yeah.
But they can add 2 guys here for basically 1.5 of what it would cost to bring Reddick back. Right. And if they add these guys, they could find themselves younger at the position than if they bring Reddick and Sweat back. So trading both of them, I envision brings you back a 2nd, 4th, 3rd, and 5th, right? Not all this year, but spread over the next 2 years. Probably a 2nd this year, a 4th next year for Sweat, a 3rd this year with a 5th next year. I'm sorry, Reddick was the first one. Sweat was the 2nd one, right? Signing Andrew Van Ginkel. I've talked about him on the show. He's familiar. So that brings familiarity. It helps people learn the defense, right? It's the perfect move. He can play. He's sort of like that. He does a little bit of everything. He can rush the passer. He can play the run. He can drop into coverage. He does it all fine. He's not going to be a nightmare or a dumpster fire every snap, right? So he's the perfect sort of guy to come around, but you still need a pass rusher. You need a guy who can get home. You need a guy who can get to the quarterback because you don't necessarily have that with what's in place right now. There are a couple of names out there. Jonathan Grenard is out there. He's a Texan, former Texan. He had 12.5 sacks last year. So big sack numbers. And a dude coming from a really, really good defense. So he's a name that I would say keep your eye on. But there's a dude in New York who's 25 and comes with a lot of elite potential. Actually had a higher pass rush rate than most of the big names in football last year, and he was playing rotationally. His name is Bryce Huff. He is 25 years old. 10 sacks last year, 17.5 sacks in 54 games, 20% pass rush win rate, 43 quarterback hits in 54 games. That's basically what they took Hassan Reddick on. Like, they took him with the potential. And look what happened.
Mm-hmm.
This is that type of a scenario. You bring in Bryce Huff, you bring in Andrew Van Ginkel, you have Nolan Smith, and you have Brandon Graham. That's a pretty nice rotation. You're set at the middle, right? You're already set there with Jordan Davis. You're set with Jalen Carter. You still have Milton Williams. You have Moro Jomo. You can get another rotational guy in this year's draft. You can sign a vet if you really want to. But I think that this is where they're going to put their money. They want to win in pass rush. They've always wanted to do that. So they're gonna try and put their money there. And if you pay Huff and Van Ginkel's 28. Reddick's about to be 30, right?
Yeah.
I think if I'm correct, right?
Mm-hmm.
Bryce Huff 25, about to be 26. Sweaty's about to be 27. So you get younger at both edges, right? Overall.
Yeah.
I just think it makes the most sense. I think trading both of them sounds crazy, but it brings you assets and you're getting younger at both spots. So that's sort of where I'm at there. I haven't asked you if you wanted to say anything. I've just been talking.
No, it's
anything
great.
that you want to say? Okay. Then I've got one more move.
Keep going.
All right. Look, we know that they are desperate at corner right now. And the corner free agent market's not great. I know that we've talked about L'Jarius Sneed on here. He's been elite for like a year or two, but I don't know what happens when you pull him out of that defense with that coordinator. Like, I think so highly of what's going on with Spags out there. I don't know if I'm willing to drop that second round pick for L'Jarius Sneed right now, especially because he's tagged and isn't signed. What if they have a history of making deals with the Saints? There's a guy that's been mentioned as looking to get out, a guy that could bring them some assets. And if the Eagles do trade Reddick and Sweat, they're going to have a ton of assets in this year's draft. Flip a couple of those assets and bring me Marshawn Lattimore to play opposite of Darius Slay. Marshawn Lattimore is 27 years old and he's an absolute freak show.
Yeah.
And he is a lockdown corner.
Yeah.
And then it allows you next year to let Darius Slay walk. Lattimore becomes your number one corner at about 16. He signed for $16 million next year. It's a very fair number for an elite corner at 28 years old. And you can go draft one this year and let them sit for the year. And then you become pretty deep at corner. Like, now you've got Slay, you've got Lattimore, you've got Job, you've got Ricks, you've got I'm missing the most obvious one, Ringo. And you bring back the one dude who got hurt last year that was supposed to push Maddox, and I'm forgetting who it is. And you've got Isaiah Rodgers too.
Yeah.
So they become really deep there. And I do think he's going to want to address it. This year, Lattimore's only getting paid $1.2 million. Does nothing to your cap. Nothing. And now Slay and Lattimore become this ridiculous safety pair. So that's another reason why I feel like trading both Reddick and Sweat, as long as you can land Van Ginkel and Huff in tomorrow, basically, then you deal both of them and you're good. And you take some of those assets and flip them for Marshawn Lattimore. Imagine going into to the draft, just to the draft. You know what you have in the middle of the field. Now you add Van Ginkel and Huff, right, to Nolan Smith and Brandon Graham. Your line is pretty much set. You're looking for depth now, okay? Then you go to linebacker. Your Nakobe Dean is set to be the starter, but you've added either Jordan Brooks or Azeez Al-Shaair. So those are your two starters. You draft a linebacker. You still have plenty of assets to bring in another rookie linebacker. Okay, so there's your middle of the field. You add Xavier McKinney to the safety spot, and you can add one of these, like, there's a million safeties. You can just bring another guy in for nothing.
Yeah.
Right? Like, just bring another guy in for nothing. And you still have Sidney Brown when he comes back from injury, and you have Reed Blankenship. So you're set there. and now you had Marshawn Lattimore opposite of Darius Slay. Your defense is all of a sudden, you said, oh my gosh, I don't know what to do. Like, what's the defense going to look like? If this is your plan in free agency, there's nothing to worry about. Now you're drafting depth. You're trying, you've got 4 top 100 picks. And maybe more because you're trading Reddick and Sweat.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know, man. I feel pretty good about it. Your thoughts?
I love the McKinney one. I'd love for that guy to be on the team. They just need desperately to get younger and faster, like across the board.
Yeah.
The Lattimore one is really interesting because that guy's a stud and like really, really good. So that one is the one that I was like, ooh, okay. I think the one thing I did want to get your opinion on is I listened to Sheil on the Ringer pod, and he talked about Huff and how he really has been more of a rotational guy, and you're essentially getting rid of 2 every down players. And like, what does his production look like if he has to play more, like that much more snaps? Like we saw, again, he has some more experience under his belt than obviously the 2 guys in the middle, but we saw what extended snaps kind of exposed in some guys this year.
Yeah.
Like, we don't know. Again, I'm saying this having really not knowing. That's just been the nature of how he's played in New York. But it was an interesting point he brought up because it's like, ooh, you are kind of, again, we know they had down years. We know they didn't play their best. But it's an interesting point to bring up is that, like, we don't really know how this guy will play with a larger workload, and do the numbers come down a little bit, and maybe that doesn't look as great after getting younger is fantastic. That they have to do it. Like, they just have to get younger and faster across the board on defense. Right. It was just an interesting point that he brought up about Huff.
I've definitely thought about it, Regs. Like, I've thought about it quite a bit. I think sometimes, you have to lean into what your guys are saying. Like, what is Hurt saying about him?
Yeah.
Because that's the dude who's got to work with him, right?
Mm-hmm.
What are your scouts saying about him? I've seen some stuff that shows like stats that show that he got most of his sacks against backup tackles, right? So certainly there's those things to look at. And maybe it's Jonathan Grenard that they go with after all anyway, because he's more of a proven entity. I think some of this depends on where they believe Nolan Smith is in his development. Because if Nolan Smith, if they feel like he's in a good spot, then there's a good chance that that's what they can bring in a rotational guy. Right. If they feel like Nolan Smith can be effective in this scenario. If not, then you just buy into what their scouts say. And because honestly, like when you look at what Reddick did before he came, it wasn't, he was fine, but he came in at a pretty cheap deal, which is why he wants out now.
Mm-hmm.
So I think, I think for me still, like, bringing back Hassan Reddick would be, all right, fine.
Yeah.
Good, great,
right.
awesome.
Sure.
Right. But it feels like right now it's not happening. And I think, the jury will be out on Huff as an every down player until he has the shot to do it. And if it's not the Eagles who give him a shot, somebody's going to.
Yeah.
Because he's 25 years old, and the upside shows whenever you watch his tape. He played in a pretty stacked defense, and that's how they used him. But it's a very fair point and a very fair question. So it just comes down to whether or not the Eagles defensive staff, the scouts, their front office informational group, if they go to Howie and say, you give him the Reddick deal.
Yeah. The
3 years, $42 million, whatever it may be, to come here and, show that he can be an every down type of guy. I think he's gonna be 28 looking for a new deal like Reddick is.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. So it really, I think a lot of it hinges on their thought Nolan Smith. And they go from there. But to me, it's him or Jonathan Greenard. They have to make sure they assert something there.
Yeah, absolutely.
For
Absolutely.
Sure.
It's still too important of a position to
And
just
they value
kind of.
it too much.
Oh yeah, exactly.
They always have. So that's not going to change. They're going to make sure they get some sort of big time
Yeah.
pass rusher.
And I think a lot of things
huge.
change if they do get a safety like McKinney, and
Yeah.
it allows Reed and Brown to do what they're better at.
Yeah.
Like
Yeah.
those guys, they can't cover. Like they're just not good at it.
Yeah.
And their job is to like be getting downhill and helping with run stopping and all that kind of stuff. So it'd be very interesting to see how hopefully better they would get knowing there's this guy behind them.
If you bring in a Jordan Brooks or like anybody that I named, like there are 4 other linebackers I can upgrade. And I fully anticipate that they're not going to be waiting to pick up scraps.
Yeah.
They might grab a scrap heap guy. Like, I mean, Kaiser White, they grabbed him late 2 years ago, and he was fantastic for them.
Yeah.
Like, you know, Fangio doesn't, you know, Fangio is going to require his linebackers again to be good in win downs. And a lot of linebackers have played some of their best football under him. So we will see. I can certainly see them making 3 or 4 moves tomorrow.
Yeah.
During tampering. So we'll see, man. I'll be excited at noon. You know, you and I'll on the text.
That's right.
On the text buzz, trying to
It'll be
figure out what's going on.
Constantly refreshing.
But it is it's time to go bold, buddy.
Oh, I love this. This is my favorite stuff that we do. I love it.
So we are about to get super bold here with Phillies takes. I will tell you, Regz, I did not do any like season prediction for the team essentially.
Yeah.
Like in terms of wins, division, and stuff like that.
Yep.
I figured we'll wait for that.
Yeah.
But I've got 5 really solid bold takes here.
I like it.
So I know you have some too.
Yeah,
how do you want?
I even
this?
dabbled. I dabbled myself this year.
How many did you end up with? Did you stick with your 3?
I did. I stuck at 3. You go first. This is your bit, so you get to go first.
What we'll do is we'll just go in and out every other one.
Yeah.
Okay. All right. I'll start here. The Phillies as a team will finish in the top 8 of defensive runs saved this year. So hear me out. No matter who's in center field, because that's become a conversation as of the last couple of days. No matter who's in center field, it's a plus defender.
Mm-hmm.
Bryson Stott plus defender. Trey Turner's going to be better this year.
Yes.
Alec Boehm gets better every year.
Has been an
Bryce
absolutely
Harper.
solid third baseman.
Bryce Harper is going to be very good. Nick is fine. And Brandon Marsh playing left field is an absolute cheat code.
Yes.
JT Realmuto is still a top 5 defensive catcher in the game. And it has been a long time since you could go into a season and say they're going to finish top 8 in defensive runs saved. I think last year they probably would have been there if Schwarber didn't play so many innings early in the year in left field.
Yeah.
It wasn't until they brought Rojas up that they were finally able to get him out of the lineup. Or until Bryce was able to play, to play first base.
Right.
So I'm starting there. They're going to be one of the 8 best defensive teams in baseball this year. And I actually think that that's not bold enough. I had top 5 written down, and changed it.
What a world we would live in if the Phillies are in the top 10 of
top
anything defensive rated.
Defensive team in baseball.
Yeah. People are going to be shocked to see their name up there.
Yeah.
But you're right. It is. Center field is just a plus no matter who is there. Like you said, Marsh in left field is very, very good. Nick has found the focus, like to just be a good right fielder, or at least not make a ton of mistakes. Like you said, Boehm, especially now that he's just going to play third base, I think will continue to get better. Like he was really solid last year defensively. And then, Trey you really can't get much worse. So at the very least, he's going to do a little bit better defensively. And then everything else was, I think, spot on. I think if they could crack the top 10, I'd be amazed. Because when you would look at those lists last year, It was just like you got to keep scrolling a while till you get to the Phillies for this defensive run
right.
save stat. So that's good. That also perfectly leads into my first one. As you mentioned, the center field battle that is going on. My bold prediction is that Christian Pache will play 75% of all games this year in center field for the Phillies.
Okay, I like it.
So again, barring injury, I'm taking this that he has a healthy, year. Maybe gets a little banged up, with something small, but nothing crazy. I haven't seen enough from Rojas in the hitting department to warrant him starting the season in the major leagues. I think he has enough to work on with whatever changes he's trying to make. He needs to be able to implement them and gain some confidence. And against major league pitching, it's just not going to happen. Like there'd be a difference if he was hitting better, like as the games went on and like these pitchers come in, they're like just trying to make the roster. He hasn't hit well against anybody.
Yeah.
Yeah. And I just think that like we might be seeing Pache kind of round into some version of the player everyone kind of expected him to be. Again, no, he's not going to jump back to being like the top prospect in all baseball. That is obviously well past him, but he seems to be very comfortable here. Whatever the hitting department is like helping him get to, he's hitting balls hard. Like Johan Rojas is where hard hit balls go to die. Like, I don't understand how some of these balls come off his bat and you're like, it only made it there. Like he swung so hard and like you expected that ball to be much farther than that. Pache is hitting the ball hard. And again, you just want a guy down there who is any kind of a threat to hit the ball hard.
Yeah.
And get on base. And I think he's not as fast as Rojas. He's not going to like be bunting for a bunch of hits and things like that. I get it. Has decent enough speed, so you're losing some, but not a ton. I just think Rojas needs to be in AAA and figure out the swing stuff. And
I'm right there with you. Like I almost had this as a bold prediction as well. I just don't see a world right now where the Phillies can get away with saying that Johan Rojas is an opening day center fielder on this team when Christian Pache is on the team.
Right, exactly.
Like if Pache wasn't on the team, you could paint some picture for me that is like, oh yeah, we're gonna put him out there. It's gonna be fine. It's not.
No, yeah.
It's not. Like I've watched the at-bats now. Like you said, nothing is hit hard.
Yep.
And you're not falling back that much defensively.
You're really not. Like when we watched Christian Pache play center field before Rojas came up, we're like, this is the greatest center fielder we've ever seen playing with the Phillies. Like
Rojas is fantastic out there. Don't get me wrong, but Pache also fantastic out there.
Yes.
So I can see that. That's a very I like the number, like that 75% of games, because and again, that's barring injury. If he's healthy, he's probably playing all of them out there.
Yeah.
Especially if and look, again, like you said, he only needs to be like a 250 guy down there.
Yeah.
At the bottom of the order.
Exactly.
That's all you need.
He just can't be 200. And I don't think with what he's exactly.
Rojas is gonna pay.
Exactly.
It's just what I'm afraid he's gonna.
Yeah.
Pay. All right. Yeah, I like it. I'll go. Do I go pitching or offense?
Ooh. I have a pitching one for my last one. So if you want to go offense.
All right, I'll go offense here. Regz, I got the Phillies with 2 40 home run guys this year. I actually I'm gonna say 245 home.
Oh, there you go.
I had both written down. I'm going 45.
There you go.
245. I'm sure you can guess who they are.
I can.
But I think for me to have 145 home run guy is insane.
2 is ridiculous.
Just ridiculous.
Yeah.
And they're going to. I have no doubt that Kyle Schwarber and Bryce Harper both eclipse 45 this year. I've said it for months that it's Bryce Harper's. It's the year of Bryce Harper. Just get ready.
Yeah.
It's the year of Bryce Harper.
Yeah.
So Bryce and Kyle are gearing up for 45 home run seasons. I do think that they're gonna have a bunch of dudes in the mid-20s. But these two are gonna be just hitting piss missiles all over the place.
I love it.
There's that one.
You'd think we'd rehearse this with how good we're segueing into a lot of these. My number 2, Bryce Harper will be your NL MVP.
All right, then I'm gonna have to check off my number 3.
Sorry, I
That's
figured
all
this
right.
is one that we might both have.
Yeah,
But I believe it in my bones that this guy's coming out with a vengeance this year.
and there may be people that are saying that's not bold. Come on, that's not bold. Listen, it's bold for a lot of reasons. The NL is stacked.
Yes.
With talent.
Yeah.
It's absolutely stacked with talent. Ronald Acuna Jr. Just the division
Right.
alone
Right.
is stocked with Matt Olson, Ronald Acuna Jr. Then you go across the coast, Freddie Freeman, Mookie Betts, Shohei Ohtani.
Let's say a guy named Shohei Ohtani now plays.
Paul Goldschmidt still here. Nolan Arenado still here. These guys are all and again, what was Bryce Harper on the top 1,200, whatever? He was like 11th.
Yeah.
Right. So they're saying that there are 10 better ball players. He's also playing his first full season at first base, which, he showed that he could do it last year, but it's a big thing. The full season, he's got the contract stuff hanging over his head, which is weird to say, but anyway, yeah, I think it's a super bold take to just say that someone's going to be an NL MVP and stick your fork in that. And I am. And I know you are too. I just think he's going to be.
Yeah.
That was my other offensive one. So I'm glad I didn't say it straight up.
Good.
Anything else you want to add about that?
I just think it's what we've talked about. He's angry he missed half a season. He's angry with the way the season ended. Like, he knows that wasn't him, in those at bats. It wasn't this team. I think the attention isn't going to be on the Phillies. I think a lot of people are going to be down on the Phillies with like the Braves doing things, with the Dodgers obviously being who they are, and what they did in the offseason. And like, look, people I think are going to like think that Arizona's in a better spot with how young they are. And, they came into Philly and did it. And it's like, okay, man, just watch angry Bryce Harper play baseball this year for a whole season.
Yep.
And we'll see what happens.
Yep. Okay. I'll jump to one of my pitching ones. I did have one on the border that I am going to use since we had a repeat one. Just tell me which pitcher is yours about?
It's a group of pitchers.
Oh, okay. All right. Then I'm going to go.
Not any individuals.
I'm going to say Kirkering leads the team in saves this year.
All right.
I think that
this is bold because that frightens me a little bit.
Here's why I say that.
But I like it.
I think that it's going to be more of a committee feel. He's just going to have the most of the group.
Gotcha.
I don't think he's going to be named the closer.
Yeah. Sure.
I just think he's going to be put in that position most often because they're going to use Alvarado earlier to get guys out. They're going to use Sir Anthony earlier to in a big spot in a game to get guys out. And he's just going to be in the 9th inning.
Yeah.
He's going to have the most opportunities, so I think he's going to lead the team in saves. He might settle into it to the point where come postseason, that's where Topper sees him. But for now, I do have him as leading the team.
I like that. That's a bold one.
Yeah.
Again, very good segue. Mine is also bullpen related.
Oh, look at us.
I said, as a group, the Phillies bullpen will host the lowest ERA in the National League as a bullpen group.
I love that. Yeah. You can totally see it. How about this Mercado cat?
Yeah.
I kept telling you, I was like, look out for this guy. Look out for this guy. Dude is really playing himself into an opportunity.
I just think, like, look, if things go, of course, this is baseball. Things could go haywire at the drop of a hat. But
sure,
I think very similarly, they have guys that are just like hungry for it. They have guys who want to pitch really well. They don't have a lot of guys that are kind of resting on their laurels and just kind of expect to go out there and be great. Like I think they have a ton of guys who are still in like a big prove it mode.
Right.
And I think that's going to lead to them being a very, very good group.
Yeah. I agree with you. I think they're terrifying for a lot of reasons. So yeah, I think that's a beautiful, um, beautiful bold prediction that carries out. There's just too many difficult guys to hit in the bullpen. There's too many difficult pitches. There's too much velocity. And I still feel like they have one of the best pitching coaches in
Yeah,
all of baseball.
absolutely.
And they just churn out. So good. That's a good one. Is that your last one?
That was my last one.
All right, then I've got two more. You want the hitting one or the pitching one first?
Let's keep the pitching rolling.
All right. Aaron Nola sets a career high in strikeouts this year. I think this year, I also had it where I thought he could finish in the top 5 in Cy Young. I think we're going to see a different version. I don't care what his spring training starts look like. I don't care what anybody's spring training starts look like as long as they're healthy. But to eclipse it, he has to get to 235 or 6.
Yeah.
235 is his career high.
I
do think that's in him. He had a lot more whiffs last year. And he set his career high 2 years ago. And last year he just wasn't even that good. So right. I think he takes a huge step forward this year and sets his career in strike. Which then leads me to perhaps my boldest prediction. The Kirkring one is very bold.
It is.
The top 8 in DRS is bold.
Yep.
Having 2 guys with 45 home runs is bold. I picking anybody to win an MVP outright is bold.
Yes.
But picking a guy to finish within the top 3 of a batting title who has never sniffed a batting title, but you have this much confidence in this beautiful bearded son of a bee. I think that this is the Brandon Marsh breakouts.
That's incredible.
There was a point last year where he was leading baseball in OPS. In the postseason, he became their best hitter.
He was our most trusted hitter for game 6 and 7 of that NLCS.
I actually think it's going to get to a point this year where Topper's going to have to look around and be like, I have him against left choice.
Yeah.
This is how good he's become. I think the confidence with which he plays is insane. The only question for him is he going to be healthy? He always tends to get banged up.
Yeah. Well, again, not playing center field, I think helps that though.
It will. Yeah, and he was dealing with some stuff from running into walls and all that good stuff. Regz, I think he could be in the top 3 to 5 for a batting title in the National League. I truly believe he could finish in the top 3 to 5.
This is not only incredible.
How's that for bold?
That is not only incredible because if you had given me guesses, Brandon Marsh wasn't. I was obviously going to have you put Bryson Stott there, which was when you first started talking about it. So, huge curveball from my side. And can you imagine? Can you imagine what this Phillies team looks like if Brandon Marsh is a top 3 batting title guy?
Look, I think we're going to see a different version of Brandon Marsh this year. I do. I think he has gotten very comfortable playing in Philly, playing for this fan base. He's comfortable with his swing.
Yeah.
Look, Bryson Stott absolutely could have been the name there.
Yeah.
I don't think it's nearly as bold.
No, I would agree.
I told you it's my boldest of bold.
Yeah.
If I rank them in order of belief, it's probably last. But you gotta have the hammer somewhere.
That was some hammer.
Well, you're welcome. That's my last bold prediction, Rex.
That's fantastic. I do think it was a big deal, and I think guys know this. When Brandon Marsh looked around in those 2 games, again, he's not saying this to be detrimental to the team, but he's like, I'm doing it, man. righty, lefty, it doesn't matter. Like, my whole team is crumbling around me, and I'm doing what I can to keep us in this.
Yep.
And just from a personal standpoint, I just think that was a huge confidence boost for him. And I think he's just understanding a lot more about what he can do to be really, really effective. Yeah, that's a great one. That was good.
Thanks, man. Thank you.
Again, I was just like, oh, Bryson Stott, got it. Nope, the bearded one.
Yeah,
the bearded one.
I saw your face change when I said that.
It was unbelievable. Yeah,
of a bee.
I was like,
Your face changed. So
I was like, wait,
well,
is he saying Kyle Schwarber? Because that would have been a bold one.
Nah, I think we would have ruined all.
Yeah, that would have just all credibility is lost at that point.
Yeah. I couldn't even spin that one. I couldn't even spin that one. But those are my takes, man. So that's where we're at. We'll keep track of them. See where we're at the year.
I love it.
But I think, we're set up pretty well here, I think. Some good ones there.
We're good.
So
they were good.
Yeah. All right, man. Well, that might take it.
We did it
for tonight.
We did it.
Another episode in the books and heading, I mean, quickly to opening day.
I can't wait.
This Thursday will be 2 weeks.
Yeah, it's awesome.
Like, that's insane, man. This Thursday is 2 weeks still.
I'm ready for it.
Yeah. So we have a couple of shows left until opening day. One of those will be a guest. We'll officially announce that once it is official. And then the other is going to be a little fun game that I call This or That. We'll all pose, what is more likely to happen? This or that? And Regz and I will choose between those two items. I've got some BBs coming for you here, Regz. I got some. You thought the Brandon Marsh take was something? Wait until I give you some of these rockets coming at you.
Can't wait.
So, all right, y'all. Well, until then, make sure that you follow us wherever you get your podcasts. Make sure you click subscribe on the YouTube channel below. You can follow us on all of your social platforms at BNB Podcast on Instagram. Same on Twitter, at the Phixated Pod on Twitter, at the Mic Drop 5, Big Regz with a Z for Regz, the Phixated fan page on Facebook, and make sure you click that merchandise link in the show description below. Until we talk to you next week, we thank you as always for listening. We love you guys. Be kind to yourself. Be kind to one another. And as we sign off, I guess, one last time. Thank you so much, Fletch.
That's right.
We love you for everything. Always a bird. 91 forever.
Thanks, big guy.
Oh, my God. Deep to right field. Way up there and way out of here.
The Philadelphia Eagles are Super Bowl champions. Eagles fans everywhere, this is for you.
The 0-2 pitch, swing and a miss, struck him out. The Philadelphia Phillies are 2008 World Champions of Baseball.